Thanks for staying with us here on Joy 99.7 FM. It's time now for News Night, and in this edition, University of Ghana Fact-Finding Committee finds no evidence of sexual harassment against two lecturers in BBC Sex for Grades documentary, but says Professor Jampo and Dr. Butako engaged in vexatious conduct.
The provisions of paragraphs 10.1, 12.1 and 12.4 of the Code of Conduct of Senior Members of the University of Ghana and the Anti-Sexual Harassment and Misconduct Policy of the University cannot be triggered against the affected lecturers.
More as will bring you full details of the November report of the 5-member committee tasked to investigate the matter. Minority in Parliament says continuous delay in distributing grounded ambulances should make Ghanaians angry, as it points to a grand scheme to delay the distribution till election 2020.
The president himself has spoken. So now they have no lifeline again. Okay, let's go back to the national ambulance, and then they should write a letter to us. So we go back and check and say that, look, we are ready to distribute, but the national ambulance service says that no, stop.
Meanwhile, the director of the ambulance service says he cannot be pressured to release ambulances that are unfit for purpose.
The truth is that we are calm, because once you know that you're doing something that will benefit your country, your conscience is free, and that's a reality.
Asante Hene Otumfuo said to the second clarifies controversial UN speech claim that suggested he had persuaded former President Mahama to concede defeat, insisting he was taken out of context.
I thought the speech, not the context of whether someone conceded or not, but the import of the speech, we never discuss that in Ghana.
And in business, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta insists measures have been instituted to gradually reduce the debt stock, following IMF's warning that the country is not closer to being classified a high debt distressed country.
And later in sports, Ghana Football Association President Keto Kruku explains decision to dissolve the technical teams of all the national teams.
And Multimedia Group gets loud applause from some of Ghana's greats as the media conglomerate celebrates 25 years of broadcasting excellence this year.
Joy is a leading media hub, and if you've attained your position by showing responsibility in social sense,
they're allowing people to have access to information, putting all of us on our toes.
You now represent much more than yourselves.
And News Night is brought to you by Puma Card from Puma Energy. Cash-free convenience. Feel free to send me your WhatsApp messages. It's 0244 340 437. I am Emefa Apawu. Details shortly. And in our very first story for tonight, the University of Ghana Fact-Finding Committee says it found no evidence of sexual harassment against two lecturers featured in the BBC documentary Sex for Grades. A report by the committee, however, maintains that there was evidence of misconduct against Professor Rasford Jampo and Dr. Paul Kwame Butako. It also raises questions about the title of the documentary, describing it as sensational and misleading. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba joins me in studio with details of the full report, but I would first want to find out, Maxwell, can you tell us how come the full report is now emerging, because it was since November?
Exactly. So after the work of the fact-finding committee on November 20, 2019, the Director of Public Affairs of the University of Ghana released in a circular said that a prima facie evidence has been found against two of the lecturers implicated in that BBC documentary, but it didn't provide the other details, left many asking questions about what the fact-finding committee actually found. So this document, we are now getting the full report of the work done by the 5-member fact-finding committee with all the other things that he considered before arriving at the decision.
So just before we delve into it, refresh our memories about who made up the committee and their terms of reference.
Well, we had Justice Retired Vida Akoto-Bamfo, who was a chairperson. We also had Professor Charlotte Wrigley Asante, who is a director of Sigensa. We had Professor Michael Piki Ocherfo, who is a dean of the School of Arts, and then Dr. Abdul Basit Aziz Bamba of the School of Law, and then Miss Doris Ansa, who is an alumna of the university, and then Mr. W.N. Tovinho, who is a secretary to the committee. Now, the committee set out, first of all, to ascertain whether the actions of the lecturers constitute an act of sexual harassment or misconduct with reference to the university's policy, and then also to find out whether the actions of the two lecturers constitute a breach of the conditions of service for senior members and regulations of the university and public service, and then also ascertain whether the actions have brought the name of the University of Ghana into disrepute, and also investigate any other related matters that the committee may consider noteworthy.
Now, the committee says the BBC declined to submit the raw video footages and other details that were required.
Yes, they provided us details with a number of times that they met. They said they met 5 times and carried out their terms of reference on the basis of a review of the video audio footage of the Search for Grades documentary, written statements by the affected lecturers, and then the BBC, and then they also had some oral hearings. They say that the BBC declined to submit the raw footage to them on the basis that, and they quote them, that in line with their policy of protecting their contributors and their sources, they cannot provide the raw footages to the committee. And then they continue to say that in the committee's analysis of the documentary, the committee actually separated the commentary surrounding the BBC documentary and then just studied and then looked at the facts of the issue without the commentary, the radio commentary, the social media commentary surrounding the Search for Grades documentary.
Now let's get into the summary of findings and recommendations. The committee says that the title of the documentary, for instance, which is Sex for Grades, is misleading and not just that, sensational as well. What was the reason given for this?
Well, the committee says that it finds that on the totality of the evidence before it, there's a huge difference between the import of the title, that is Sex for Grades, and then the content of the actual secret video recording of the affected lecturers of the University of Ghana. Hence, it concluded that it was misleading and sensational because the Search for Grades title did not match the content of the documentary itself.
So the committee also asserts that both lecturers argued and maintained that the audiovisual recording does not give an accurate picture of all their encounters with these students or girls that were in the documentary. Tell us more about it.
Yes, they said the two lecturers, Professor Ransford Jampo and then Dr. Butako, maintained throughout the proceedings that it did not represent what they have, the evidence that they have before them does not represent, the full encounters that they had with the two persons who posed as students. The committee requested the BBC to furnish it with the raw video footage of all the recorded encounters between the undercover journalists and the lecturers, a request the committee saying the BBC denied. However, in the light of the totality of the evidence before the committee says that it finds that it is more probable than not that there were other encounters between the lecturers and the BBC journalists that have been captured in the documentary. The committee continues to say that it finds that the audio or video recording of the Sex for Grades documentary is authentic, and no reasonable doubt has been cast on its reliability and or authenticity. That being in the case, the committee further finds on the basis of the audio recording and the other evidence before the committee. So they went ahead and then sort of extracted the evidence that needed for their investigations, and they've listed all the evidence, incriminating evidence, I should say, that they found after watching that documentary.
Now, per the report also, the committee says, per the code of conduct for senior members of the University of Ghana, the anti-sexual harassment and misconduct policy of the university cannot be triggered against the affected lecturers. That's Dr. Butako and Professor Jampo. What reasons have been given for this?
Well, one that stands out is point 19, which says the committee finds that under paragraphs 10.1, 12.1 and 12.4 of the Code of Conduct of Senior Members of the University of Ghana and the Anti-Sexual Harassment and Misconduct Policy of the University, the victim of the misconduct must be a member of the university. The committee notes that in the absence of any evidence that Zara and Abigail, in reference to the BBC undercover journalists, are students or members of the University of Ghana, the provisions of paragraphs 10.1, 12.1 and 12.4 of the Code of Conduct of senior members of the University of Ghana and the anti-sexual harassment and misconduct policy of the university cannot be triggered against the affected lecturers. It continues to explain that the committee does not find any prima facie evidence to support any finding that the conduct of the two lecturers satisfy the ingredients of misconduct in paragraphs 10.1, 12.1, and 12.4 of the Code of Conduct of senior members of the University of Ghana, or the definitions of sexual harassment and misconduct under the anti-sexual harassment and misconduct policy of the university.
Interesting. But in conclusion, though, the committee says it found Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Kwame Butako engaged in vexatious conduct. Yeah. What does the university mean by that?
That's contained in point 20 of the reports captured under conclusion and recommendations. It says, after carefully examining the available evidence, the committee finds credible evidence of misconduct against Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Kwame Butako, contrary to paragraph 6.4 of the Code of Conduct of senior members of the University of Ghana, which stipulates that, quote, academic staff shall at all times comport themselves in ways that will enhance their image and that of the university, unquote. In addition, they say that they find credible evidence of misconduct against Professor Ransford Jampo, contrary to Statute 42(1)EI of the University Statutes, which says that no member of the university, that is the E, shall engage in a course of vexatious conduct that is directed at one or more specific individuals, and II, that is known to be unwelcome. So following from all the details that the committee provided in this report, because the two people who posed as students of the University of Ghana Zara and Abigail are not students of the University of Ghana. So the two lecturers cannot be pinned to the accusation of sexually harassing them or sexual misconduct, which is against the university's policy. But they say that the two lecturers were engaged in a vexatious conduct as contained in the University of Ghana statutes.
Well, so the report concludes by saying that with regard to the other specific allegations of misconduct against Professor Ransford Jampo by some former students of the University of Ghana, the committee recommends that these complaints be inquired into within the context of the requisite adjudicatory processes stipulated under the basic law and policies of the university, namely the disciplinary committee for senior members of the education committee of the anti-sexual harassment committee, and that was done by the university.
Exactly. Okay, and we understand that the case before the disciplinary committee is ongoing. Yes, and we hear that Professor Ransford Jampo has already appeared before that particular committee. Okay. Dr. Butako also has appeared before the committee. We are waiting to hear what the disciplinary committee would come out with the final findings and recommendations on this particular matter.
And we tried unsuccessfully to reach the BBC and the university.
Yes, we tried getting in touch with the Director of Public Affairs of the University of Ghana, Madam Stella Amwa, and she couldn't respond to us. We're still trying to reach her, and then we're also trying to get in touch with the
BBC as well. It's been unsuccessful so far. Maxwell Agbagba there, but we don't know if these two lecturers have been reinstated or they are still on suspension.
Exactly, that's an outstanding question we want to
find. Well, Maxwell Agbagba, thank you so much for bringing us details of that report by the Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee of the University of Ghana, that findings against Dr. Butako and Professor Ransford Jampo exonerated in some angles, and then also asked that the disciplinary committee investigates other portions of evidence that came up at the committee hearings. Now, on to some other issues. Now, you're still listening to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. What are your thoughts so far on what you've heard, both on Top Story and here on Newsnight? Feel free and join us with your thoughts and comments. It's via WhatsApp is 0244340437. Now, a minority in Parliament wants Ghanaians to be incensed about what it calls government's continuous delay in releasing the ambulances parked at the forecourt of Parliament. Ranking member on the Health Committee, Kwabena Mintah Akando, argues that the vehicles have been deliberately grounded for selfish intent. His comment is coming in the wake of a request by the National Ambulance Service asking the President to postpone the distribution of the ambulance, which was meant to have been done today. But Mr. Akando alleges that the request by the Ambulance Service is part of a grand scheme to delay the distribution until election 2020.
I feel that our Ghanaians, we are not angry enough. If we meet this issue, with the anger with which we met the issue of the comprehensive sexual education, the issue of the burden of the new chamber, and many others, I believe that by now government would have stopped taking us for granted and would have distributed the ambulances. Again, I feel that the latest reasons or excuses that have been given are choreographed. And for me, in my humble opinion, they don't hold water at all. And today is 5th, and they are seeking to tell us new reasons. I mean, why do we do this?
What are your suspicions, sir?
I feel that, look, it is the fanfare, okay, of it that they want to push closer and closer to December. So let's push it at least, even if you do it in February. But for Christ's sake, we are talking about emergency health care. If the argument is that because these are new ambulances, you want to give them some refresher courses, my brother, you work in Parliament, you know that these ambulances have been in Parliament since September, October, November, December. We are in January, for Christ's sake. Refresher courses, 5 months. I mean, what are we talking about?
Honorable, you want Ghanaians to mount pressure on government to immediately release the ambulances?
Fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted to, because I do not, what's the guarantee that even the 20-something they are talking about of January, even on that date, to be distributed? Because you and I saw that once the president has spoken that it was going to be distributed on the 6th of January, it was going to be done only to choreograph and then incite the National Ambulance Service to write a letter. And some of these tricks, I mean, we are above them. No,
you are alleging that. I mean, Honorable, you are alleging that the government had to instigate the National Ambulance Services to write a letter requesting for the delay in commissioning the ambulances. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, because you see,
that's a serious allegation.
I don't talk by heart. Listen to me, Paka. You know, the Minister for Government Special Initiative has spoken all this while. The Minister for Health has spoken. The President himself has spoken. So now they have no lifeline again. Okay, let's go back to the National Ambulance, and then they should write. After all, they are going to be the recipient, and then they should write a letter to us. So we go back and tell Ghanaians that, look, we are ready to distribute, but the National Ambulance Service says that no, stop, don't distribute because we are not ready.
Meanwhile, Director at the National Ambulance Service, Dr. Ahmed Zakaria, says he will not be pressured into taking an ill-advised decision of handing over to government ambulances that are not fit for purpose. Listen to this interview he had with my colleague Latif Idris.
It's because we didn't start the conversation properly. If we had started the conversation looking at a holistic system, addressing all the challenges that are coming up with the various processes, we'll have all been on the same page. But the emphasis was focused so much on just commissioning. And that's why when these realities are dawning on us and we explain it, people are not understanding. But the truth is that we are calm, because once you know that you're doing something that will benefit your country, your conscience is free. And that's the reality.
There are those who are blaming you that you are deliberately sabotaging government with this letter you wrote to the health minister, because of the color that you bear.
You see, that one is pure mischief, because seriously, look, Ghana is the only country that we have. We have worked elsewhere, and we know how the emergency response system works. And I've been in this system across all political divide, and therefore, my nature. I'm very professional. If it is A, it is A. If it is B, it is B. We just make sure what will benefit the country. And the truth of the matter is, if the issues we raised were not cogent enough, were not real on the ground, then you will have faulted us. But objectively, if these are realities on the ground, that will even inure to the benefit of the masses. Why will definitely anybody read negative meanings into it? It's just that sometimes we are not objective, because we always want something to be a one way. And if it is not, we just try to politicize it. Otherwise, you are a journalist. You've gone to the forecourt of Parliament House. It is obvious that these activities we are talking about are ongoing. And it's also obvious that if you count the number of vehicles there, they are not the number that you will expect. I hope you understand. And that's the truth. Because some are complete, they are there. Others are still going through processes. So the only time you want to say somebody is sabotaging something is when you have done your investigation to see that the reasons the person is advancing are not logic. But if that's the reality, objectively, where lies the colorization, the sabotage there, obviously. And that's the last thing we do. And then remember, emergency services are one type of services you cannot politicize. Seriously. That is one area that all of us to be together. Because to be honest with you, emergencies do not know particulars. Today, if you collapse now, and you are calling for emergency care, you are just calling an emergency number. And if you see the questioning they will ask, party affiliation will be none of the questions. I hope you understand. It will be your name, where you are, what is wrong with you, and immediately they dispatch the ambulance. Obviously, if you are building such a system, and if you look at where we started, we started with a pilot program of just 7 stations. We scale up to 28. Later, we're able to move to 130. And now, thanks to these new vehicles, we are going to expand to all constituencies. So if you've been around trying to build a system, obviously, where will any sabotage come from?
Your final assurance to the millions of Ghanaians who are on the streets of social media lamenting about the fact that the delay is needless and wants the distribution done to save lives in the nooks and crannies of the country.
We just appeal to them to just be a bit patient, because you see, when you are patient and the whole system is complete and you start without any hitches, it's better than to rush and then you have to stop and then be fixing the processes. So for me, asking for a couple of days delay to improve or bring on board efficiency, I think is worth it. And we just appeal for more patience and more calm. And then by 28th, we should be done.
So we shouldn't expect any more delays. Are you going to be categorical?
No, because you see, it's dangerous to be categoric, because remember that when you are dealing with processes that you don't have direct control over, it is dangerous. Because, for example, these 48 that have arrived, they will have to go through clearing process. I'm not the one directly in charge of the clearing. When they are cleared, they will definitely have to go through the post-delivery inspection. That is done by a different company. We don't have direct control. When that is done, they have to go through insurance. They have to go through the installation of the devices, and we have to also do the labeling. The good news is that because everybody is on standby, we assume that those delays definitely should not come up.
So that's Dr. Zakaria there speaking to my colleague Latif Idris. Latif Idris has been to the Parliament House, where we are told that embossment and then also tracking devices are being installed on the ambulances before distribution on 28th, as we are told. Yeah. But Latif, what did you find first of all?
So brisk work is ongoing, but by the time we're living there, they've all left site because it was past 5 p.m. and so everybody had left. But before then, brisk work, everybody is doing his bit. We have those who are embossing the district's name on the ambulances, those who are working on the GPS and all of that. So yes, and it is expected that going forward they will fast track the process to ensure that within the shortest possible time, every single one of these ambulances is fit for purpose to hit the road.
Okay, so from there you went to the offices of Dr. Zakaria, the ambulance service, for instance. There's some videos circulating on social media that these ambulances had been spotted on the N1 and also the motorway or so.
You mean meaning the next 44?
Exactly,
batch.
But first, before the 44, we're told that these ambulances are ready and it looks like they've started dispatching them or so. But you found answers to it. What were you told, including the 44 that was expected today?
So we were at the office of the director, and we saw a good number of ambulances passing on the street just in front of the ambulance service. We could count not less than 40 of these ambulances, and someone whispered to us that so this is the latest 44 that were expected to come into the country. So now we have the latest 44. We are waiting for the last batch to come in, and then we have the full complement of the ambulances
that are expected. Well, in that interview also, I'm curious, did you ask Dr. Zakaria who gave the president information that he could have distributed the ambulances today?
So, the ambulance service is a key stakeholder when it comes to the fitting of the ambulances with the GPS and all of that before it is handed over to either the health ministry or the special initiative ministry. So the ambulance service is one. So you can say from the engagement I had with Dr. Zakaria, they all came together to give the precedent that yes, you can go with this date.
Okay.
But then unforeseen circumstances also came in, and then it blew everything out of.
And even the 28th, he says he doesn't want to be emphatic that it will happen
because the last 44 is not in the country, so you cannot speak to it. Once we have the last 44 in the country, then he can confidently say that we now have control over these ambulances, and so we can work, double over the period to ensure that we are able to do what we have to do so that the distribution can take place.
Thank you, Latif. Just coming back from the ground, and also his interaction with the National Ambulance Service Director, Dr. Zakaria. Now, the Public Health Directorate of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly says it will begin an exercise to fumigate all markets in Accra as it prepares to partner Joy News in the rollout of the second phase of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign. The campaign, which took the sanitation task force to several communities in Accra to get residents to comply with bylaws, has been lauded by several individuals and groups. We'll hear from Inspector Joseph Asitanga, who's been co-leading the task force shortly. But first, here is a wrap of some highlights from the first phase of the successful project.
The Joy Clean Ghana campaign, in collaboration with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's Sanitation Task Force, got on the road in September. Some offenders were fined by the courts. Homeowners were ordered by the court to fix toilets in their homes, while contaminated foodstuffs were confiscated. But a few episodes stood out.
We discovered that they quickly cleared the waste mixed with human excreta, that is toilet, kept it in the bathroom, and this was smoked fish, exposing the fish to contamination.
At Manchagbona, the team was met with stiff opposition from an assemblyman identified as James Ado, alias Zola.
We can arrest, we can invite. We chose to invite him to come and assist in the investigation.
He would later be arrested by the police and put before court. At Choco, however, the reverse was the case. The assemblyman actually led the team to whip the offenders in line. But there was a freak incident in one of the compounds in week 3 of the outing.
Is it for house?
Sometimes you prepare for the animals.
Hey, you preparing the bamboo for animals?
And still.
What type of animals? Dogs. Where are they? Okay, we would like to inspect the dogs.
They are mountains place, so they are in the cage.
So you see how tricky they are playing with us.
When we came here, I told her about the flies here and where she's preparing the food. She just ran away.
We remember the distressing episode where the team discovered a beans seller who had a stack of plantains at the base of a pipe of a public toilet to facilitate ripening of a plantain.
Please collect all these things and go and put it in your car.
She was fined and asked to immediately relocate her business or face more severe sanctions. Of course, there were stops at the markets. The Tuesday market.
You can see flies. You see human excreta.
Then the Agbogloshi market.
All the drains are filled up and you can see maggot growth, infestation of rodent. These are ratus.
At the Kaneshi market, the first visit was unpleasant. A follow-up visit to the same venue revealed improved sanitary conditions.
We can now listen to Inspector Joseph Asitanga on the need to fumigate the markets and how this year's exercise will be structured. Your machine. What's that making a noise? Apologize for that. We'll definitely bring that to you shortly. And you're still listening to News Night here on Joy 99.7 FM. Time now to join George Riafe for the latest from the world of business. George, how are you doing?
I'm not doing bad.
I know.
And, what
judging from your tie, you're not really doing bad. What's in business?
Well, coming up in business, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta insists measures have been instituted to gradually reduce the country's total debt stock following IMF warning that Ghana is now closer to being described or classified as a high debt distress country. We'll also be telling you more about what the fund is also talking about, the energy sector, and what government is doing, whether it is sustainable or not. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials. And first, National Bank, that's we understand your business and giving you the advice to grow your firm.
Everyone says I'm a Kosia filler, but it's not like I'm nosy or go out to find out the latest filler. It's just that I get 50 megabytes of data free after paying for only the first minute of every call. And so I just keep discovering stuff minute after minute. That's how come I was minding my business, scrolling through my timeline, and I found out Coco has a new baby. Oh, and last week I learned Ken won the lottery. You see, Ken is my brother's friend. So hello, look who's about to roll with the rich and famous.
Enjoy even more value with MTN Free After One. You only pay for the first minute of your call on MTN Free After One, and the rest is free. Plus, you enjoy free 50 megabytes worth of data to browse your favorite sites. Compare where, compare there. So dial *315# to sign up. We day for you everywhere you go. Terms and conditions apply.
Mr. Barr has big dreams for his business, Barr & Co. Limited, and his family. Making them a reality meant long drives and queues. He's lost precious time struggling to pay his suppliers in China, Turkey, India, and other parts of the world. With the First National Bank global payment via our online banking enterprise, he now pays for all that in the convenience of his home or office, giving him time to focus on family and growing his business. Use our online banking enterprise to access Forex when you need it. It takes a bank that does more to help your family. So who's helping yours? First National Bank. How can we help you?
We give you nothing but the best. We stay above the rest. More quality, more affordability. Kingdom Books and Stationery. Everybody's going to the one and only shop where customer satisfaction is a guarantee. Kingdom Books and Stationery.
Oh yes, with our 30 days credit facility with no interest charge, free delivery services, and our free consultation on setting up your office, Kingdom Books and Stationery is unmatched in our delivery of quality and affordable office essentials, equipment, and furniture.
Experience world-class customer service in all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Takoradi.
Call us on 0302-764-101
or visit our website at www.kingdomgh.com.
Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all office essentials and stationery. Terms and conditions apply.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has maintained that the required programs have been instituted that would help reduce debt stock to appreciable levels very soon. Now, this follows warning by the IMF that the country is now closer to being classified as a high debt distress country. This is more of a warning that the country could have some challenges in meeting its debt obligations. Mr. Ofori-Atta insists the country would not get to that status because of things that are being done right now.
It is quite clear to us that stable environment is really a prerequisite to build anything on. Infrastructure is always a challenge in terms of finding appropriate financing to support that. And I think things like Sino-Hydro gives us, alternatives to how to tackle that. But I think the assurance really for the market is that what we have done well in these 3 years we'll continue to do. The Fiscal Responsibility Act, which we passed, we intend to stay within that. And all of the irreversibility issues of the council, etc., things that we intend to keep.
Do you think you need to do more to convince the market about your commitment to fiscal discipline?
I mean, fortunately for us, we are a party that had been in power before, in which senior minister was able to do that. So we do have precedents, and we respect that. I think there was a lot of skepticism when we were exiting the IMF that, will we leave the floodgates open? And we proved that we wouldn't. So really, maybe it's, a constructive criticism to keep us on our toes. But we are confident, and I think there's no need to worry about that.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, let's still stay on issues relating to the IMF because it is warning that the programs that have been implemented to deal with the energy sector debts and reforms are not sustainable. Now, this was contained in the fund's latest staff report after it came into the country to assess the health of the economy. There is more in this report.
According to the IMF, the way the reforms are being implemented will not bring about the expected results and can also be described as a short-term measure. This is because it will not deal with the various challenges facing the sector in the long term. Government, as at the end of 2018, pegged the energy sector debt at around $2.7 billion, with $800 million owed private fuel suppliers and independent power producers. Government in the IMF itself noted that it projects a shortfall for the sector by some $1 billion, which they plan to partially finance with the budget. But the IMF believes that these partial payment arrangements may not be enough to deal with these debts. Government, on the other hand, has argued that these measures are just part of a broader program to deal with the entire challenges faced the sector.
And that is a business desk report. Now, Barclays Bank Ghana has just begun what can be described as external rebranding into office corporate colors to ABSA. Now, this is to aid the formal rebranding of Barclays Ghana to ABSA. That is next month. Now, checks show that its outdoor colors and ATMs are being changed from the blue and white colors to the red, that of ABSA. Now, this, as Salisa has said, that it is part of the process to ensure that its brand actually signifies or actually supports the corporate colors of ABSA. Now, Barclays Africa in July last year announced the change of its name from ABSA Group. That is a change of its name from Barclays to ABSA Group. I mean, this development affected some of its subsidiaries in Africa, including Ghana. According to officials of Barclays Ghana, they argue that nothing much would change by the intent of the service offering because they are just working on the brand following the change in the interest in their Africa operations. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And EcoBank witnessed one of its biggest drop in value at the end of trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange as it went down by some significant amount of price. Actually, for Republic Bank, it was up by 4 pesos to close at 60 pesos. And for many people, this development interest in EcoBank went down by 69 pesos and is now worth 7 Ghana cedis 40 pesos. And that's all for business on Newsline. We're all looking forward to the rebranding of Barclays to ABSA. And if you go around the red colors, you know, it's rising, it's changing, and you're saying that, well, listen, in terms of service offering, yes, nothing much is going to change because we're going to offer the same quality of service that we're offering to you as Barclays. But this is just a brand, a change in brand because we have some change in ownership of the bank in Africa from Barclays Africa to ABSA Group. Okay. George, thank you for that education. Now, let's take some of your comments that you've sent in via WhatsApp. Loads and loads of them. We'll start with Nana on the Spintex Road, and he says that, did you not hear an NPP top person say on your station that the NDC won't win the election when the register is redone? Should we accept the results of the referendum and the local elections if the register isn't credible? And then Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm says it is time Mr. President stops playing with the intelligence of Ghanaians and takes us serious in this country. It goes on and on. And this one says, I want to place on record that the government could not have distributed the ambulance today because they just cleared 15 ambulances from the port just now in Tema. It is lined up around the Mankwazi roundabout right now. Let your reporters check. Thanks so much for that. We'll check. And Tomla in Mankranso says, I totally support the resistance of the new voters register. The Gene Mentor-led EC wants to steal and replace the existing credible register. When hospitals have no beds, people share water. That's our top story that you're commenting on. And this one from AU Farouk in Tamale North says ambulances paid for by taxpayers being treated like personal gifts. Ghana is sinking. He says Ghana will not sink in Jesus' name. And this one from Emmanuel, he says, for the sake of peace, let us postpone this after the census. Awini Emmanuel sends that one from Navrongo. Thanks for your message. And NS from Taifa says Kwabna Minta Kando and by extension his allies are needlessly inciting Ghanaians against the government over the ambulances. Why are we rushing to distribute the car which is not ready to be used? Please stop unnecessary politicking in the country. And then this one from Paul Apusa from Tiptoe says, I knew from day one that the lecturers were going to be set free. This is Ghana for you, always playing gymnastics with
everything. Loads and loads of your messages. I'll take the final one. It's between Musa and Big Joe. And this one says, what is happening to old ambulances that have been grounded because of minor repairs at the Idrisu Center of the ambulance service? I can find as many as 5 of these ambulances that have been abandoned around the fire service station. If we cannot maintain old ones, why scuffle over new ones? That's from Big Joe in a drizzle. Thank you so much for your messages here on Newsnight via WhatsApp on 0244340437. Now let's turn our attention to fire, because scores of farmers in the Sisala West District of the Upper West region are counting their losses after fire ravaged their farms this weekend. One of the victims is the regional best maize farmer, John Dima, who lost 31 acres of his produce, though the cause of fire is yet to be ascertained. He tells Joy News many farmers are devastated by their loss and wants government assistance.
There is a colleague of mine, he also lost his farm produce, and the tractor was even burnt to ashes. One of them too, who also happened to be an art grower of mine, he also lost, I think, 5 acres.
What triggered the fire? Do you know?
I think it's a traveling fire. Well, we actually saw the fire at a far distance, and we've been hunting and trying to block it. We hunted the fire almost 3 days, and it didn't get to the site before they came. They came to the village for the funeral, and in anticipation that it may come there, that is even one of the reasons why some of them gone back to check on the.
Was there an intervention by the fire service?
No. Last 3 years, I encountered a similar incident. But when we brought the fire service, they couldn't enter the farm. You know, the type of land preparations we did normally do, was some portions of the field is not harrow. It's just a big plow. So when you bring the fire service, fire tender, when they enter and they listen, get into some of the gutters that the tractors created during plowing, they are not able to move.
How do you feel right now?
Oh, you can. We are not talking about small money. It's got lost. It's quite. I'm very sad with it. And at the moment, some of them too were back, and we shelled them and backed them, but they are close to the chaff of the maize. So we haven't picked them. And once the fire is huge, that some of the back got melt, but we could still pick the maize anyway. But once they melt and they got burned and the grains fall to the ground, if you are even picking, you cannot pick all, and the quality too will be challenged over here. Well, when you are picking them, stones will definitely get their ways into the grains.
So you have that John Dima. He's the regional best maize farmer for the Upper West region. Speaking to my colleague Kote Nate, he's lost 31 acres of his produce. Here in Accra, several residents of Accra's biggest market have also lost their homes and wares to an inferno that engulfed parts of the Konkomba market in Old Fadama near Agbeblushi. Now, over 20 stores were completely burnt in the fires. Joy News' PSC Safo has been on the beat, and here's his report.
9 a.m. at Agbeblushi. Some residents try salvaging properties they could find from the ruins. A good number of them stood close to the untouched buildings, silenced by the extent of devastation. The first Sunday of 2020 had not been what they expected.
2020 mu yakwa asore akọbọ 12 no na wo ma bede asore dam se ejasi ye bene ye ne manyina si ye ntema si ye nso ye bene ayanankware ye bene ye ne manyina si ye ntema ye de fra ne nyina si nkwala suku ne ma wo mo de kwa suku ne nyina si ye ne bibia bio na ye de asi babia ye bede na ye ne bi.
They recount what they lost in the fire.
I'm a final year student, Form 3. I'm registered. I'm now a candidate, prepared to write my WASI. By my books, everything is gone.
Everything, my TV, my phones, everything has been inside. Actually, my money, because of how the banks are now, they are now closing the bank. My money is only 9 million, and I put it under my carpet.
900 cedis.
Yeah, 900. Yeah, that's it. So I put 9 million. I put it under my carpet, and then it burned.
Me pama 5 years ni. Oh, my sister na yes, sister ni na say me no mama pa. Any fridge na me dey adwuma ni nyina. Crofo ne ma nyina Christmas obi a meji no ma. Ni nyina de ma pampa ni nyina o. Ba kokura ma ntumi anyi.
Musa Ziyad is assemblyman for the Amamomo electoral area.
Over 500 households have their things burnt.
Musa cites late response of the fire service poor access to roads, and the lack of water in the area as factors contributing to the high level of property damage. He called on government to intervene as soon as possible.
We have pleaded with the government, the water situation, the access road, the gutters. They deem this place as a temporary structure. Now that we've been accepted to be part of the development of Ghana, we'll call on the president, we'll call on the vice president, the Zongo Development Ministry. In fact, the old Fadama as a community falls within that ministry. They should help us. The cement bags will help us, blocks will help. It will not be enough, but at least the little things that will be brought to us will also tell us that we are part of Ghana and the government is thinking about us.
The police and the fire service are yet to reveal full details on investigations on this fire. PSC Nanayao Safos report for Joy News.
Now, in the central region, 3 persons were reported dead with 5 others in critical condition. Now, following a pre-mixed fuel explosion at Elmina in the Komenda Edina Eguafo Ebrim, that's the KEA district in the central region over the weekend. We also heard about a similar situation at Buipe. But correspondent Richard Kwejunyako has been following the story and joins us on the line with details. Richard, what's the latest on this? We understand the police are on the heels of the suspect who caused the explosion.
Exactly. So the Elmina police is on their hands for the person who set the fire very close to the prepaid fuel outlet. According to the police commander, they've been searching the entire Elmina place for him, but to no avail, and so they are still in their search. I also contacted the hospital, went to the hospital where some of the survivors were, and I was told that they were all discharged, and leaving one who visits the hospital on a daily basis to dress the wounds. And so that is the latest as far as this thing is concerned. I've also been in touch with the Ghana National Fire Service. They said that they couldn't get access to the place to even, let alone even quench the fire. So it took the intervention of the community folks in Elmina to put out the fire.
So that's my colleague Richard Kwejunyako bringing us the latest on that premix fire at central region town of Komenda Edina Eguafo Ebrim in Elmina. It's time now for sports, and Keto Kriku has been in the news over the weekend. That exclusive interview with Nathan Elato.
Yes, absolutely.
Great interview.
Yes, great interview was, and we have to put on record that that was his very first interview in the year,
and it was exclusive too.
And it was exclusive to us here on Joy FM. Now, the president of the Football Association has been explaining their decision to dissolve all the national team's technical setup. Now, questions have been asked why the FA decided to go on that tangent with Coach Appiah and many others losing their jobs. Well, this is what the FA president had to say when that question was put to him on last Saturday's edition of the Joy Sports Link.
To be honest, we are taking it game after game. I think physically we prepared very well. To be honest, we are taking it game after game. I think physically we prepared very well for this Gusa games because we knew we were going to play 10 matches in all. And every day you have a game. It's only after 4 or 5 days that there will be a rest. So we are really taking every aspect of football, rest, the kind of food we eat and everything together. So I think we are just being disciplined and we are just being careful with how we do things. I think after this game, most of the guys will have to rest and then prepare for our next game tomorrow afternoon. So we are taking it game after game, and then we hope to cross the tunnel when we get there.
All right, so that's Abel Manume. Just unfortunate we couldn't bring you that soundbite of the FA president Keto Kriku explaining why they decided to dissolve the national team's technical setup. But Abel Manume plays for University of Education, and he was talking about the ongoing Gusa Games. Well, the opening ceremony was held today, and he actually is a former Great Olympics player, and he plays for University of Education. And today they wrapped up the opening ceremony with a 3-0 win over debutants. That's the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. The games continue tomorrow with football, basketball, tennis, volleyball in the limelight. There are more coverage at the ongoing Gusa Games on our subsequent sports bulletins on TV, radio, and online.
Thank you very much, Benedict Owusu. Now, the Asantehene Otumfuo to the second has clarified controversial UN speech claim that suggested he had persuaded former President John Dramani Mahama to concede defeat, insisting he was taken out of context. The revelation sparked a public debate, ostensibly pointing at the former president for not willing to accept defeat, which led to his office disputing the claim. Speaking on the matter for the first time after receiving the prestigious Pillar of Peace Award, the Otumfuo said his speech was rather focused on the governance system on the continent.
The unprecedented honor of addressing the United Nations in New York. What was I talking about at the UN? About Africa. Amen. Just a little bit of that was taken out of context, and the whole speech was brought out of context. No one discussed it. And up to this time, no one has come out to say, you said at the UN, talking about Africa, the government, the system that we have inherited. And I wonder why we said, because I thought the speech, not the content of whether someone conceded or not, but the import of the speech, we never discussed that in Ghana.
You heard there the Asantehene Otumfuo to the second. Now, Ghana, under the leadership of former President Rawlings in 1995, adopted a Vision 2020 document to serve as a blueprint for sustainable socio-economic development. The document recognized two important facts: efficient use of the country's resources and decentralization. This year marks 25 years since the Vision 2020 plan was launched. In fact, it elapses this year to put Ghana at par with Asian tigers such as Singapore and Malaysia. But experts say not enough political will has been demonstrated to attain this target. Chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, Professor Stephen Adair, tells Super Morning Show host Daniel Dazi the progress made in the country cannot be credited to the Vision 2020 document.
By chance. Pardon? Any target was done because of Vision 2020. Just as a result of normal progression of implementing government agenda.
And I heard you say then that it was just by chance.
Yes, in other words, there wasn't any attempt to follow Vision 2020. They just followed, the second term of Rawlings, followed this so-called manifestos, as the politicians say. When Kufuor came, he wasn't following, but Kufuor's regime followed a very, very tight 8-year to 4-year programs under the Ghana Poverty Reduction Program, which was actually also controlled and instigated by the World Bank, and they insisted on, as a condition of the what they call HIPIC relief. So I think that much of the change that was achieved was not because of 2020, but because of the Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy, coupled with the HIPIC relief, which actually, though did not put so much money directly in Ghanaians' hands, what we were using for debt servicing became available, and therefore a lot of things were achieved. So that was really what made a difference during the period, rather than the Vision 2020, because neither the NDC or NPP committed to that, so to more or less torpedoed. So
that's Professor Stephen Adair. Now, superior courts across the country will this week resume work, with many hoping to see some resolution to outstanding criminal and constitutional cases. Court correspondent Joseph Akable in the Foreign Report points to some cases to look out for this week.
The case involving the alleged coup plotters remains a major criminal trial that shocked many and generated heated discussion in the year 2019. Senior police officer ACP Agojo remains in the custody of the police together with 9 others. He maintains he is innocent.
These charges are frivolous. I'm as strong as anything. I'm not going to be bothered. Nobody can gag me. I have not committed any crime.
Hearing of the case continues on January 8, with state prosecutors expected to inform the court whether they have received the AG's advice. Other cases pending before the Superior Court include the trial of persons accused of killing Ebuakwa North MP JB Dankwa Edu and trial of former Cocoa Board CEO Stephen Opuni slated for January 9.
Now, chiefs and people of the Vakpo traditional area in the Volta region have appealed to government to release ACP Dr. Benjamin Agojo, who is being tried for his alleged involvement in a coup plot to topple the Akufo-Addo-led government. Now, the chiefs there held a press conference. Here's the divisional chief of Vakpo Togbe Awuro the Fifth appealed to the judiciary to fast-track the hearing of ACP Agojo's treason case.
We as a community are therefore calling on the government, especially the judiciary, to expedite action on the case before them, since justice delayed is justice denied. We are appealing to the judiciary to act expeditiously in the interest of justice. The entire Vakpo community and the immediate family are not happy with the current situation of their son's continuous detention. We are appealing to the powers that be for his immediate release. As disciplined community and our law-abiding people, we want the law to take its course, but we want his freedom now. The trial can continue. We are not preventing government from doing the just. At the end of it, a good trial will speak for itself.
That's a divisional chief of Vakpo, Togbe Awuro the Fifth there. Now, I have some exciting news because it was founded in 1995. The multimedia group has distinguished itself as the largest independent commercial media and entertainment company in Ghana, starting with only 12 employees. The group now directly employs over 600 workers across 6 radio brands in Accra and Kumasi, 3 online brands, and Ghana's first free multi-channel television brand, Multi TV. Over the years, the drive of the multimedia group has been to challenge the status quo and change lives. And as we celebrate 25 years of broadcasting, some of Ghana's great men have lauded the contribution of the multimedia group to Ghana's development. Joint News Editor Fifi Kumsing has more.
What began as a single radio station in 1995 is today the nation's largest radio, television, and online network, and sub-Saharan Africa's biggest media entity. At the heart of the philosophy of the multimedia group is the need to affect lives. Throughout the period, the group has produced award-winning stories, all focused on making the country a better place, culminating in various campaigns for safer water, hospitals.
The women are in labor, but they would have to hold on until the labor rooms are free. Those who cannot will give birth on the floor.
Schools and security. In various messages, some of Ghana's great men have applauded the work of the group over the years. Ex-President John Ajekum Kufuor.
Joy is a leading media hub, and I believe you've attained your position by showing responsibility in social sense. And my prayer is that you continue even into your, as you say, you celebrate your 25th.
Stanbic Bank CEO and President of the Ghana Association of Bankers, Alhassan Andani.
Joy FM and all the subsidiaries that has been spawned out of this has been an African, a Ghanaian success story of enterprise. This is a company that started from very humble beginnings. The only radio in town was Radio Ghana, and today the story is there for everybody to see. And the professionals that have, have come through Joy FM and have been produced by this establishment has been fabulous. And I should say that if you were to stop broadcasting, there will be a year-long demonstration in this country by your own clients. So you represent much more than the entrepreneurs. You now represent much more than yourselves.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia.
Joy FM for 25 years. First of all, congratulations in advance. I think that you've been a very major addition to the freedom of information and communication, and you've really contributed a lot to political discourse in this country, allowing people to have access to information, putting all of us on our toes. I think that Ghana is so much the better for this Joy brand. It's a brand that I think all Ghanaians will appreciate.
And Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams.
Workers of Joy FM and the media for all the good work.
And the good work does not cease. The group is poised to continue its leadership to make the society better informed, better entertained, and better educated on the issues that matter to them.
And there are loads of programs lined up to celebrate and to say thank you to you for your support throughout the 25 years of Multimedia Group. And one of them, I'll give it to you shortly. It kickstarted the year. It was the 90s Jam. And if you missed it, I have a wrap of what you missed. But that's coming after. After that, though, we have first opinion of the year 2020. And it's changing our blessings. That's my opinion with Nanan Sakwal. That's it for Newsnight. I am Emefa Apawu. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com.